What would you do if 5 alien war captains laughed in your face and gave your entire planet only one day to surrender? Would you beg for mercy, or would you smile because you knew something they did not? Before this story goes any further, take 1 second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who enjoys seeing humanity stand tall when the whole galaxy expects us to fall. My name is Admiral Gregory Hale, and at 3:47 in the morning, I woke to the sound that every officer in Earth defense feared most. The red alarm was not loud at first. It started as a low pulse under the floor, like the heart of some huge animal waking beneath the mountain. Then the wall lights turned red. Then the speakers began to scream. I sat up before I was fully awake. After 40 years in uniform, your body learns what danger sounds like. My room was dark. Outside the window, the Swiss Alps were still covered in night. Snow moved gently across the glass. For one short second, the world looked peaceful. Then my door opened without a knock. Commander Elena Pierce entered in full uniform, her face pale, her hair tied back too quickly. She held a thin black tablet in both hands. She did not salute. That frightened me more than the alarm. I took the tablet from her and read the message. It was only 9 words. The Galactic Concord has summoned Earth to Three-Nose Station. I read it twice. Then I looked up at Elena. When? Her voice was tight. Within 12 hours, sir. They asked for you by name. I stood slowly. My legs felt heavy, but my mind had become cold and clear. The Galactic Concord had watched Earth for generations. They had never spoken to us directly. They had flown quiet ships past the edge of our solar system. They had listened to our broadcasts. They had mapped our oceans, our cities, our satellites, our weapons, our mistakes. But they had never invited us anywhere. Not once. To them, humanity was young. Small. Noisy. Clever in the way animals are clever when they learn how to open a door. We were not a nation in their eyes. We were not even a threat. We were a possible future problem. And now, suddenly, the oldest powers in the local arm of the galaxy wanted to meet me in person. That did not mean they had found respect for Earth. It meant they had finally decided what to do with us. I dressed in my formal black uniform. No medals. No gold. No decoration except the small blue symbol of Earth on my collar. Elena watched me from the doorway. Sir, should we alert the fleet? I looked at her in the mirror. No. Her eyes widened a little. Sir. Not yet, I said. Let them think we are exactly what they believe we are. Weak. Behind her, the alarm stopped. The silence that followed felt worse. 4 hours later, my shuttle left Geneva spaceport under a gray morning sky. The city below was waking up. People were walking to work. Children were waiting at crossings. Bakers were opening shops. Buses were moving through wet streets. None of them knew that 5 alien captains were preparing to put a hand around the throat of Earth. None of them knew that their lives had just entered a countdown. I traveled alone, because that was what the Concorde demanded. No guards. No diplomats. No fleet escort. Only one human admiral in one small shuttle. They wanted me isolated. They wanted me small. They wanted the image of it. I let them have it. The warp gate opened like a blue wound in space. My shuttle passed through, and the stars turned into long white lines. For 6 hours, I sat in silence and reviewed the files that I had memorized years earlier. Captain Vrax of the Corvani Dominion. Captain Salira of the Allori Spire. Captain Morgrath of the Dren Pack. Captain Yolan of the Vashani Trade Combine. Captain Kesson 9 of the Scythery Collective. 5 names. 5 powers. 5 monsters wearing uniforms. The Corvani conquered worlds and called it natural order. The Allori burned cities and sang while they did it. The Dren ate the bodies of their enemies and built temples from the bones. The Vashani did not fight their own wars. They paid other species to do the killing, then sold weapons to both sides. And the Scytheri were machines, ancient thinking machines that had watched living empires rise and die for 9,000 years. These 5 had shaped the Concord for centuries. And all 5 had laughed at Earth. I had read their private messages. Their jokes. Their reports. Little apes. Water-world primitives. A species too angry to manage itself. A candle burning in a storm. They were not wrong about everything. Humanity had been angry. We had been violent. We had nearly destroyed ourselves more than once. But they had made one mistake that old powers always make. They thought our scars were proof of weakness. They did not understand that scars are also proof that something survived. Three-Nose Station appeared ahead of me 7 minutes after I left the warp tunnel. It was enormous. A silver ring around a dead black star, armed on every side. Guns followed my shuttle as I approached. Their targeting lights moved across my hull like red fingers. 2 alien patrol ships came beside me. Their pilots opened a channel just to laugh at my engines. One of them clicked and hissed in a language my translator barely understood. "Human craft, your engine sounds like a wounded insect." The other laughed. Let them laugh. Three-Nose Station pulled my shuttle into a docking bay made for larger, richer, more respected visitors. I walked through a corridor guarded by aliens in polished armor. None of them looked at me like a guest. They looked at me like cargo. A tall creature the room was built like a theater. 5 raised platforms stood around the walls. In the center of the floor was a single low chair. That chair was for me. I walked to it and sat down. The 5 captains looked down from above. Vrax of the Corvani was the first to speak. He was huge, armored, insect-shaped, with 6 legs folded under him and sharp jaws that clicked when he breathed. "Admiral Gregory Hale of Earth," he said. "You came quickly." I looked up at him. When 5 great captains call, a polite man answers. Selira of the Allori smiled. Her feathers shimmered blue and black under the lights. She was beautiful in the way a knife can be beautiful. "Polite," she said. "How charming." Morgrath leaned forward. His body was massive, reptile-like, his teeth yellow and wet. "Does it know why it has been called?" "It," I noticed. "Not he. Not the Admiral. It." Yolan of the Vashani lifted a jeweled tentacle. His body moved like soft water inside a purple robe. Rings of bone and gold hung from his arms. "Your star system sits beside a trade lane that has become useful to us," he said. "For many years, we ignored this. Now we will not." I said nothing. Kesson 9, the machine captain, sat perfectly still. His body was black metal, lit from inside by thin blue lines. His face had no mouth, but when he spoke, the sound filled the room. "The Concord has chosen a peaceful solution." That word almost made me laugh. Peaceful. Vrax touched a panel. A document appeared in the air before me, written in human standard. I read it carefully. Earth would surrender all mining rights in the solar system. Earth would allow Corvani military bases on Mars and Luna. Earth would pay yearly fuel tribute to the Concord forever. Earth would reduce its navy to local patrol craft. Earth would accept Concord observers in every major government. Earth would give up independent diplomacy. In return, the human species would be allowed to continue existing. I read every line. Then I looked up. No. For 1 second, no one moved. Then the laughter began. Vrax laughed first. His jaws clicked fast and sharp. Selira covered her beak with one elegant hand and laughed like breaking glass. Morgrath threw back his head and roared so loudly that the floor shook under my boots. Yolan made a wet bubbling sound. Even Kesson 9 released a low mechanical hum that might have been amusement. They laughed for a long time. I sat quietly in the little chair. I folded my hands. I watched them. I wanted to remember every detail. The angle of Vrax's head. The silver flash of Selira feathers. The hunger in Morgrath eyes. The lazy confidence in Yolan voice. The stillness of Kessin 9. They thought this was the moment humanity learned its place. I knew it was the last peaceful moment they would ever have. Morgrath wiped moisture from one huge eye. You say no, little animal. I do. Your fastest ships cannot reach our colonies. Your weapons cannot break our shields. Your species still argues over borders on one planet. You have nothing. I nodded once. That is what you believe. Selira leaned forward. You have one rotation of your world to accept the terms. If you refuse, Earth will be erased. Your oceans will boil. Your cities will become dust. Your children will never grow old. Her voice stayed soft while she said it. That made it worse. I stood. Then I understand the offer. Vrax clicked his jaws. You understand nothing. I bowed slightly, just enough to be polite. I understand more than you think. As I turned toward the door, a private channel opened in my ear. The voice was calm and metallic. Admiral Hale. It was Kessin 9. I did not turn. Yes. I have watched 12,000 species receive terms in this chamber. Most cried. Some threatened. Some tried to bargain. A few attacked and died quickly. You did none of these things. I kept walking. Your heart rate did not rise, Kessin said. Your breathing remained steady. Your pupils did not widen. I find this unusual. I stopped at the doorway. Because you made a mistake, I said. A pause. Explain. I looked back once at the 5 captains. You brought all 5 of you into the same room to laugh at Earth. Then I walked out. The guards escorted me back to my shuttle. The patrol ships followed me away from Three-Nose Station and mocked me again on open channels. I smiled until I reached the warp gate. Then I turned off every public transmitter. I opened a channel that had not been used in 11 years. This is Admiral Gregory Hale, I said. Authorization Palace Black 7. Wake the fleet. Wake every shadow ship. Wake Nemesis. For 3 seconds, there was only static. Then a human voice answered. Authorization confirmed. Cold sunrise begins now. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the stars. 5 alien captains had laughed at Earth. They had no idea that for 73 years, hiding. Learning. Waiting. They thought silence meant fear. They were about to learn that silence can also mean patience. And humans are very, very patient. My shuttle returned to Earth just after sunset. The sky over Geneva was gold and soft. Mountains stood black against the light. The city below looked too calm for what was coming. The alien deadline gave us one planetary rotation. Less than 24 hours. The Concord believed that was generous. They thought Earth would spend that time in panic. They imagined leaders shouting at each other, citizens running through streets, armies pointing useless missiles at the sky. That was what most young species did. They panicked loudly. Humanity had spent 73 years preparing to be quiet. 42 cruisers have confirmed readiness. 300 destroyers are moving to hidden positions. Drone wings are warming in the belt. The Mars guns are silent but loaded. Luna shield grid is online. And Nemesis? Her eyes changed. Nemesis is waiting for you, sir. Good. The lift dropped deep under the ground. For almost 2 minutes, we descended through stone, steel, and silence. The command center beneath the Alps did not exist. No government admitted to funding it. No public map showed it. The people who worked there had false jobs, false offices, false histories. Their families believed they were analysts, engineers, consultants, climate researchers. Some were. Most were soldiers in the longest hidden war humanity had ever prepared for. The doors opened onto a corridor lit in blue. The air smelled of coffee, metal, and fear. We walked past sealed labs where weapons too dangerous for public knowledge had been designed. We passed walls of names, each one belonging to a man or woman who had died building the Palace Initiative. I read a few as I passed. Maria Chen. Omar Voss. Rachel Adeyemi. Tariq Singh. People who had given their whole lives to a battle they might never see. Tonight, we would either honor them or waste them. The main operations room was full. Hundreds of officers, scientists, and analysts stood when I entered. The giant display on the far wall showed the outer solar system. Red lights were appearing near the edge of Neptune orbit. The Concorde Armada had arrived early. 200 ships. Corvani heavy cruisers in the center. Alori destroyers on both wings. Dren assault craft packed behind them. Vashani supply carriers hanging back like rich men watching a street fight. Sithari drone platforms above the formation, quiet and watchful. Elena spoke beside me. They are not slowing down, sir. Of course not. They gave us a deadline, she said. No, I said. They gave themselves a story. In that story, Earth kneels before they need to fire. I walked to the command platform. Every face in the room turned toward me. Some were young. Some were old. Some had waited their whole careers for this night. Some had been children when the Palace Initiative began. Now they stood in a room under a mountain while the most powerful military force in I spoke quietly. The Concorde believes it is coming to collect tribute from a weak world. They believe our visible defenses are all we have. They believe our fear will make us simple. They are wrong. No one moved. For 73 years, humanity has hidden its best ships, its best weapons, and its best minds. We did not do this because we wanted war. We did it because the stars were not kind when we first listened to them. We learned what waited out there. We learned what happened to young worlds that begged. Tonight, we will not beg. A young analyst near the front swallowed hard. Sir, he said. What if this is only the first fleet? I knew his name. Daniel Whitfield. 26 years old. Brilliant. Tired. Afraid but still at his station. It is the first fleet, I said. His face tightened. And when the next one comes? Then we beat that one too. But first, we win tonight. He nodded slowly. The room changed after that. Fear was still there, but it became useful. Focused. I began giving orders. Nemesis and her sister ship stay hidden in subspace pockets until my command. Cruiser groups show themselves around Earth. Make us look smaller than we are. Destroyers move silent through the belt. Drone swarms remain cold. No power. No signal. I want enemy scanners to see rocks and dust. Elena repeated every order into the secure network. Then I paused. Get me Wing Commander Alina Hale. The room went a little quieter. My daughter was 29 years old. She commanded Reaper Wing, the finest fighter squadron humanity had ever trained. She had earned the post. Not because of my name. In some ways, because of my name, she had been forced to earn twice as much. A screen opened before me. Alina appeared in her cockpit, helmet resting against her shoulder, dark hair pulled tight, face calm. She looked like her mother when she was about to argue. Hi, Dad. I should have corrected her. We were on command channel. I did not. Hi, sweetheart. She smiled for half a second. How bad is it? 200 ships. That is a lot. Yes. Do we have surprises? A few. Good. I wanted to tell her not to fly. I wanted to order her back to Earth. I wanted to be a father before I was an admiral. But her squadron needed her. And Earth needed every hand. Alina looked away for a moment, checking something on her console, then looked back. Dad, if I do not come back, do not waste time being sorry. My throat tightened. That is not a request I can obey. Then waste only a little time. I tried to smile. Come home, Wing Commander Hale. That is an order. Yes, Admiral. The screen went dark. For one moment, I stood very still. Then I turned back to the war. Around the solar system, humanity took its hidden positions. 6 dreadships vanished into pockets of twisted space. Their engines cold. Their weapons asleep. Their crews waiting in darkness. 42 cruisers moved into visible orbit around Earth, looking brave and hopeless. 300 destroyers slipped through asteroid shadows. 12,000 drone fighters rested among rocks, silent as dead things. On Mars, buried cannons pointed toward the dark. On Luna, shield teams whispered final checks. On Earth, 8 billion people slept, ate, worked, argued, loved, prayed, and lived under a sky that was about to catch fire. And the Concorde came on. If you are still watching, this is where the story truly opens up. Hit the like button, subscribe for more stories like this, and share this video with someone who understands that humans may look calm right before they change history. The alien fleet crossed Neptune orbit 6 hours later. They did not send another warning. They did not ask if we had reconsidered. They simply advanced. Vrak's voice came over an open channel, loud enough for every human station to hear. Earth, your time is over. You were offered survival. You chose pride. Your lesson begins now. I looked at the display. The Corvani cruisers led the formation. Perfect targets. Proud ships. Heavy armor. Thick shields. Slow reactions. I waited. Elena stood beside me, one hand over her earpiece. Dreadships report ready. Wait. The red icons moved closer. Concorde weapons are charging. Wait. Earth defense cruisers are requesting permission to engage. Not yet. On the main display, the lead Corvani ship turned its guns toward Earth. That was enough. I leaned toward the command microphone. All hands, this is Admiral Hale. We were never the prey. Light them up. Far beyond the visible battlefield, the dreadship Nemesis opened its hidden launch tubes. The first phase sheer missile crossed space faster than any Concorde sensor could follow. It did not leave a flame. It did not roar. It simply appeared beside the lead Corvani cruiser and touched its hull. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then the ship came apart. Not exploded. Not burned. Came apart. Its armor separated in long strips. Its engine spine folded like wet paper. Its shield collapsed inward. 800 meters of alien warship became a quiet cloud of pieces. A second missile struck another cruiser. Then a third. Then 12. In the command center, no one cheered. Not yet. Officers spoke in controlled voices. First target destroyed. Second destroyed. Third destroyed. Corvani formation breaking. Enemy sensors searching. No lock on dreadships. I watched Vrak's flagship, the Iron Mandible, spin hard to starboard as confusion spread through his fleet. We had access to his command channel through a human agent planted 30 years earlier inside a Corvani communication division. Vrax was shouting now. Find the weapon. Find the ship. There must be a ship. There was a ship. 6 of them. He just could not see them. That was the beauty of subspace pocket warfare. Concorde science had dismissed it as unstable. Too dangerous. Too expensive. Not worth development. Humanity had heard that and smiled. Dangerous and expensive had never stopped us before. Within 90 seconds, 17 Concorde ships were gone. The Allori destroyers moved next. They spread into elegant attack lines, their hulls shining like pearls, their formation so graceful it almost seemed like art. They came for our visible cruiser group around Earth. They believed they had found our true fleet. Elena looked at me. Reaper Wing is in position. Send them. A cluster of green lights appeared behind Luna. Alina and 40 human fighters accelerated into open space. The Allori ignored them at first. Small craft had no place in high fleet warfare, according to Concord doctrine. Fighters were old technology. Romantic. Wasteful. That was another thing they had wrong. Alina flew straight toward the Allori destroyer Brightham. Its turrets turned smoothly, predicting her path with perfect mathematics. Then she cut her engines. Her fighter tumbled. The destroyer fired at where she should have been. She was not there. Her squadron scattered like broken glass, each fighter moving in a different impossible pattern. Human pilots are not elegant by nature. They are not smooth. They do not always respect the expected shape of survival. They dive too low. Turn too late. Cut engines at insane speeds. Trust instinct when calculation says no. The Allori targeting systems could not decide what they were seeing. Reaper Wing entered minimum range and fired. The Brightham split down its side, blue light spilling from its core. Alina passed through the expanding cloud and rolled toward the next target. Reaper Wing reports 2 destroyers down, an officer called. Tell them to keep dancing, I said. The Dren attacked like animals. Their boarding craft rushed our cruiser Carthage and fired teleport beams into its hull. 3,000 Dren warriors appeared inside human corridors wearing heavy armor and carrying blades wider than a man. They expected panic. They expected soft bodies. They expected doors, hallways, screaming crews. They did not expect the Carthage to have been built around a simple human rule. Assume the enemy will get inside. Every compartment detected non-human life signs. Every door sealed. Every section vented into space. 3,000 elite Dren warriors became frozen shapes outside the hull before they fired a single shot. Captain Morgrath saw it happen on his screen. His roar shook the channel. He could not understand it. The Dren had never lost a boarding strike. They had never fought a species that designed its own ships as traps. Yolan of the Vashani understood faster than the others. He was not brave. He was not stupid either. The moment he realized the battle had turned, he declared his ships neutral and began retreating. I let him. There are enemies you destroy with missiles. There are enemies you destroy with money. Across the galaxy, on the Vashani capital world, human agents who had lived there for decades entered the central exchange system with valid credentials, calm voices, and steady hands. They did not carry bombs. By the time Yolan reached his first safe distance marker, half the private fortunes of the trade combine had already been moved into hidden accounts. By the time he realized something was wrong, his own officers were checking their balances and finding nothing. Nothing frightens a merchant empire like an empty account. The Vashani did not need to be killed. They needed to be made poor. That left Kessin 9. The machine captain had not joined the battle. His drone platform stayed outside the main fight, watching. Measuring. Learning. A private channel opened. Admiral Hale, he said. Kessin. Your species has hidden capabilities beyond all projected models. Yes. You built weapons that ignore our strongest shield theories. You placed agents inside major Concord systems for decades. You allowed yourselves to appear weak while preparing a full strategic counterstrike. This level of patience is unusual for biological life. Humans can be patient when survival requires it. That is now clear. His voice had no emotion, but I heard something new beneath it. Respect. He continued. The Scythery Collective will withdraw. We have no interest in losing irreplaceable machines to a species we have misread this badly. A wise choice. One question, Admiral. Ask it. Why did you not target my platforms first? Your opening strike could have destroyed us. I looked at his blue metal face on the screen. Because you were watching. The others were laughing. The channel stayed silent for several seconds. Then Kessin 9 said, I will remember that distinction. His ships turned and left the battlefield. The first battle lasted 3 hours. By the end of it, the Concorde Armada was broken. Vrax tried to flee in a personal shuttle. A drone clipped his engines and dragged him back alive. Selira surrendered after Reaper Wing cut apart her flagship drives. Morgrath demanded honorable combat. I denied him. He was captured screaming on the bridge of his disabled warship. Yolan vanished toward the warp lane, bankrupt and abandoned by half his crew before he reached it. Kessin 9 withdrew with every Scythery platform intact. Of 200 enemy ships, 148 were destroyed. 32 surrendered. 20 escaped, all Scythery. Humanity lost 12 cruisers, 47 destroyers, and 384 men and women. Victory did not feel like celebration. It felt like breathing after nearly drowning. In the command center, some people cried. Some laughed. Some stared at the display without blinking. I read the casualty numbers twice. Alina was alive. Reaper Wing had lost 14 pilots, but she was alive. That should have been enough for one night. It was not. Because the Concorde had not sent its true strength. It had sent a hand. And we had cut it off. Now the body was coming. The warning appeared 40 minutes after sunrise. 6 warp signatures opened beyond Neptune. They were enormous. Each one larger than anything we had faced. The room went silent as the shapes appeared. 6 black ships, each 40 kilometers long, moving in perfect formation. Apex orbiters. The oldest warships in the galaxy. The ships that had ended civilizations. The ships whose shields had never failed. At their center flew the Eternal Verdict, flagship of the Concorde Senate. A voice entered every Earth channel at once. People of Earth, it said. I am Arbiter Prime Velos. You have done what no young species has done in recorded history. You have defeated a Concorde battle fleet. This is rare. This is impressive. This is also not enough. I looked at the display. Velos continued. The Senate authorizes one final mercy. Surrender all military power. Accept relocation of your leadership. Accept Concorde management of your species. Your planet will be spared. Your history will be preserved. Your art will remain in our archives. Refuse, and Earth will die. His voice was calm. Not mocking. That made him different. Vrax had wanted us afraid. Selira had wanted us humiliated. Morgrath had wanted us broken. Yolan had wanted us owned. Velos simply wanted the matter finished. I opened a channel. Arbiter Prime Velos, this is Admiral Gregory Hale of Earth. I hear you, Admiral. Your offer is rejected. No one in my command center moved. Velos was silent for a long moment. May I ask why? Because humans did not crawl from caves, cross oceans, build cities, bury children, reach the moon, and step into the stars just to become a managed population in someone else's archive. A slow breath came through the channel. You understand what my ships can do? Yes. You understand that I have ended 67 civilizations? Yes. Then why speak with such certainty? I looked at the blue image of Earth on the side display. Because you have ended civilizations that chose to bend. You have not yet met one that chose to stand. Another silence. Then Velos said, I had hoped you would say something like that. That surprised me. He continued, I am old, Admiral. Older than your nations. Older than your languages. I have grown tired of worlds that kneel before they are tested. You will not kneel. That means I must respect you while I end you. The channel closed. The Apex fleet advanced. This is the moment where many stories would slow down, but humanity had no time for fear. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with a friend who needs a story where courage is not loud, it is steady. Our first weapons failed against the Apex shields. Phase shear missiles struck and vanished in blue fire. Drone swarms tried to cut their engines and were burned away. Cruiser beams hit their hulls and scattered like rain against stone. The eternal verdict fired once. The cruiser Carthage disappeared. Not damaged. Not destroyed. Gone. One moment it existed. The next moment the space where it had been was empty. 800 people died without a sound. I gripped the rail and forced myself not to look away. Velos spoke privately. Admiral Hale, you fight well. But this cannot end in your favor. I know. Then why continue? Because I am not trying to win this part. A pause. Explain. No. We pulled back into the asteroid belt. That was where humanity had spent 40 years preparing the second trap. The Concorde knew the asteroid belt as debris. Empty rocks. Mining potential. A place to pass through carefully. We knew it as terrain. Every large asteroid had been mapped. Many had been hollowed. Some contained engines. Some contained mines. Some contained sensor ghosts. Some held missile tubes. Some were not asteroids at all. As the apex ships entered the belt, the rocks woke. Mines struck their shields. Hidden cannons fired from stone. False targets bloomed everywhere. Asteroids moved into their path and exploded with enough force to shake their shield fields. For the first time in 9,000 years, an apex shield flickered. Not failed. But flickered. In the command room, Daniel Whitfield shouted, "Shield loss detected on Orbiter 3. 2% drop. 2%. Against any other enemy, it would have been nothing. Against the apex, it was history." Velos opened the channel again. "Your preparation is remarkable. Thank you. It will not be enough. I know. You keep saying that. Because it is true. Then what are you waiting for?" I turned to Elena. Her face had gone pale again. She already knew. "Activate Vesta," I said. She did not move for 1 second. "Sir, once we do this." "I know. There is no undoing it." "I know." She swallowed. "Vesta is active." Across the galaxy, hidden human agents received a single coded word. Dawn. On the Corvani home world, a maintenance worker named Jacob Moss ended 31 years of pretending. He walked into the central shield control chamber with a lunch container in one hand and a tool kit in the other. He had repaired those systems for half his life. No one stopped him. 3 quiet changes later, the planetary shield failed. Rebel worlds that had suffered under Corvani rule for centuries saw their chance. They moved immediately. On the Allori capital, a woman named Liana Vale stood beside the royal dining hall in a servant uniform. She had lived among them for 24 years. She spoke their language. She sang their songs. She had even learned to admire parts of their culture. But she remembered the worlds they had burned. She placed a device beneath the table and walked away. The Allori royal line ended during dinner. On the Dren Council moon, 7 human soldiers woke from hidden cryo chambers buried under an old temple. They had been asleep for 19 years. They rose, armed themselves, entered the council chamber, and captured the Dren warlords alive. The Dren Empire, built on fear, lost its head in 1 hour. On the Vashani banking world, the last locks opened. Wealth from 8,000 years of trade vanished into accounts that did not officially exist. The Vashani economy collapsed before their leaders understood the attack. And to Kessin 9, I sent one message. We could have entered your central memory cradle. We did not. Consider this respect returned. His reply came 1 minute later. Acknowledged. The Concorde began dying while its greatest fleet was still fighting us. Reports reached Velos one by one. I watched him through a hidden feed from our deepest agent aboard the Eternal Verdict. Her name was Catherine Ellsworth. She had been placed inside the Apex Command staff 11 years earlier. Velos did not shout. He did not curse. He listened. His home structure was collapsing. For major pillars of the Concord were falling at the same time. The Senate was losing control of its member worlds. Client species were rising. Banks were freezing. Military commands were going dark. Only once did his hand close into a fist. Then he opened a channel. Admiral Hale. Arbiter. You did not defeat our fleet first. You attacked the idea that supported it. Yes. That is not war as my people understand it. It is war as mine does. You have killed an empire. No, I said. We found the cracks. Your empire did the rest. He studied me through the screen. What is your final weapon? I looked toward the inner system display. You will see it in 28 seconds. Near Mercury, a station that did not exist turned toward the sun. The Soul Lance had been our greatest secret. For 62 years, human engineers had built it in silence. A focusing array large enough to draw power from the surface of the sun itself. It could fire once. Maybe twice if the universe was kind, and the universe was not often kind. Its target was the eternal verdict. The weapon charged. Velos saw it. The Apex flagship began to turn. A 40-kilometer ship does not move quickly. The Soul Lance fired. A white line crossed the solar system. It struck the eternal verdict at the bow. For 2.3 seconds, the oldest shield in the galaxy held. Then it failed. The beam cut through the flagship from front to back. It passed through command decks, armor layers, engine wells, and ancient systems no human had names for. The eternal verdict broke into 3 pieces. Velos sent one last message. Private channel. Admiral Hale. I listened. You were worth my final battle. Then his signal ended. The 5 remaining Apex orbiters held formation. For 1 long minute, no one breathed. They still outgunned us. They could still push forward. They could still kill millions before we stopped them. Then the 5 ships turned. They left the asteroid belt. They crossed the outer system. They entered warp. The Apex fleet had retreated. For the first time in 9,000 years, the Concorde had run. The command center erupted. People shouted. Some cried. Some dropped into chairs as if their bones had disappeared. Elena covered her mouth and turned away. Daniel Whitfield laughed like a man who could not believe sound still existed. I did not celebrate. I was looking at Reaper Wing. During the final exchange, Elena's squadron had engaged Apex escort drones near the edge of the belt. Their signals were weak. Several were missing. I pointed at the display. Status on Reaper Wing. No one answered quickly enough. I said it again, sharper. Status. An officer spoke. 12 fighters confirmed active. 6 damaged and returning. 22 lost. Wing Commander Hale. He stopped. My chest became hollow. Continue. Her fighter was found near Asteroid Cluster 7. Heavy damage. Cockpit breach. She has been recovered by the destroyer Coventry. Medical status critical. Alive? The officer looked up. Alive, sir. For a moment, I could not speak. The room was celebrating the survival of Earth. I stood at the center of it and tried to remember how to breathe. Then I opened the fleet channel. All hands, this is Admiral Hale. The enemy has withdrawn. Earth is secure. Every person who fought today has carried the weight of history and did not break. Begin rescue operations. Recover our wounded. Honor our dead. Stand down to secondary alert. I paused. And remember this. We did not win because we were stronger. We won because we were ready. I closed the channel. Then I turned to Elena. Get me to the Coventry. The medical bay aboard the Coventry was small, white, and painfully quiet. Elena lay inside a healing tank filled with pale blue light. Her left side was covered in repair mesh. Tubes moved gently with every breath. A doctor told me she would live. I did not trust the words at first. I sat beside her for 3 days. On the 4th morning, her eyes opened. She looked at me through the glass. A speaker carried her weak voice. Did we win? I leaned close. We started winning. She smiled. That was enough. She slept again. Outside the window, Earth turned slowly in sunlight. That blue planet had been one order away from becoming another dead example in Concord history. Now every power in the galaxy was saying its name. Earth. Not primitive world. Not minor species. Earth. Within 72 hours, 12 client species declared independence from the Concord. Within a week, 30 more followed. Within a month, the Concord Senate dissolved under its own fear, debt, and shame. The 5 captains who had laughed in that chamber each found the end they had earned. Vrax was returned to the Corvani under guard. His people, furious at the failure of their leaders, put him on public trial. I was told he tried to speak with dignity. No one listened. Selira was handed to the Allori resistance. The same resistance she had hunted for years. I heard she sang before the end. That seemed fitting. Morgrath demanded trial by combat. He demanded to face me with blade and claw. I refused. He had killed farmers, children, miners, and refugees. He did not deserve the story of a warrior death. He lived for years in a small cell on a cold moon, watching the Dren pack break apart on a screen. Yolan was found months later in a dead freighter near an abandoned trade route. His fortune was gone. His allies were gone. His crew had left him. Among his people, poverty was worse than prison. I let him drift. Some punishments do not need help. Kesson 9 requested a meeting on Earth. I granted it. He came alone in a small black shuttle and met me in a garden outside Geneva. His metal body moved slowly among the trees. We spoke for 4 hours. At the end, humanity and the Scythery signed a non-aggression pact. Kesson 9 said something I still remember. Your species is dangerous because you remember insult without wasting energy on anger. I told him that was not always true. He said, no. But it was true when it mattered. The Sol Concordat formed 6 months later. It included Earth, liberated client worlds, surviving refugee species we had secretly protected, and even 3 former Concord members that wanted a different future. They asked me to serve as first chairman. I refused. I was a soldier. Not a builder of laws. I recommended Margaret Holloway, a quiet diplomat who had worked beside us in the secret years. She became the leader the new alliance needed. As for me, I asked for command of the Nemesis too. Because during the fall of the Concord, we had heard rumors. Whispers from the Galactic Rim. Something older than the Concord. Something that had taught ancient empires to be cruel. Something watching from places where even the Apex ships had feared to travel. Humanity had become known now. That meant whatever waited in the dark would eventually look our way. I preferred to meet it before it reached Earth. Before the final stretch of this story, take a quiet second to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who would enjoy this kind of human-first science fiction. It helps the next story reach the right people. 1 year after the battle, the Nemesis 2 left Earth orbit. She was larger than the first Nemesis. Cleaner. Stronger. Built openly this time, not hidden in the dark. The whole planet watched her launch. In cities, people stopped in streets and looked up at public screens. On Mars, workers stood outside pressure domes. On Luna, children pressed their hands to glass. On stations across the solar system, crews paused their duties. The fleet gathered around us. 60 ships. Not enough to rule the galaxy. Enough to remind it that Earth was awake. Elena Pierce stood as my second in command. Daniel Whitfield became Chief Science Officer. Catherine Ellsworth, our agent aboard the Eternal Verdict, became Chief of Intelligence. And Alina, fully healed, commanded the fighter wings. She stood beside me on the bridge as the final checks came in. You know, she said, most fathers take their daughters fishing. I looked at her. We are going to the Galactic Rim. That is much worse than fishing. She smiled. Probably less boring. I laughed for the first time in what felt like years. The navigation officer turned from his console. He was young. Too young, I thought, until I remembered that all of us had once been too young for the wars we entered. Admiral, he said. Course is ready. Set it. He hesitated. Sir, if the thing out there is older than the Concorde, if it is stronger than everything we just fought, what do we do? The bridge became quiet. I looked out through the forward glass. Earth shone behind us. Small. Blue. Beautiful. The planet 5 captains had laughed at. The planet that had waited 73 years. The planet that had watched the stars, heard monsters moving in the dark, and chosen not to scream. I thought about Vrak's clicking laughter. Selira glass voice. Morgrath hungry roar. Yolan soft greed. Kessin 9 silent calculation. I thought about Velos, ancient and tired, thanking me for his final battle. I thought about every name on the wall under the Alps. I thought about my daughter alive beside me. Then I answered the young officer. If something older is waiting out there, we learn it. We watch it. We understand it. And if it comes for Earth, we teach it the same lesson. What lesson, sir? I looked at him. That humanity is not loud because it is foolish. It is not quiet because it is afraid. And it does not kneel because something bigger has entered the room. Alina folded her arms. That is a long lesson. Humans usually are. The warp gate opened ahead of us. The stars stretched. The Nemesis 2 moved into the light. Behind us, across 1,000 worlds, a new story was spreading. Alien parents told it to their children. They told of a small blue world at the edge of a trade lane. They told of 5 proud captains who laughed at the creatures living there. They told of how those creatures smiled politely, returned home, and opened doors that had been closed for generations. They told of hidden ships, silent weapons, patient spies, fearless pilots, and one old admiral who sat in a small chair while monsters laughed above him. They told how the laughter ended. Not with a speech. Not with a threat. But with a fleet rising from the dark. A new word entered many alien languages after that. Human. In some tongues, it meant the quiet ones. In others, it meant the patient ones. In one Elori dialect, it meant those who remember. In a Corvani military warning file, it meant never assume harmless. I liked that one. Years later, when historians asked me what saved Earth, I never said weapons first. Weapons mattered. Ships mattered. Spies mattered. But what saved Earth was older than any machine we built. It was the part of humanity that looks at a storm and builds a roof. The part that hears wolves at the edge of the firelight and sharpens a spear. The part that cries, buries its dead, and stands up again. The Concorde had mistaken our history of war for proof that we were broken. They never understood that we had spent thousands of years learning the hardest lesson a species can learn. How to survive ourselves. Once a species learns that, outside enemies become a different kind of problem. Still terrible. Still dangerous. But not impossible. The Nemesis 2 crossed the gate. The solar system vanished behind us. Ahead, the rim waited in darkness. Somewhere out there, something older than the Concorde had begun to notice Earth. Maybe it was afraid. Maybe it was curious. Maybe it was already laughing. I almost hoped it was laughing. Because if there was one thing humanity understood better than any species in the galaxy, it was this. Let them laugh. Let them laugh while we listen. Let them laugh while we learn. Let them laugh while we build. Let them laugh until the moment our fleet arrives. And then let the silence teach them who we are.